let me introduce Hiroshi Sasaki. He is with the ICS Center of Excellence in Japan. He has a background not only in IT security, but also in developing industrial control systems. So he is one of the few unicorns that we're all looking for that knows both sides of the house really, really well. Hiroshi will speak about digital transformation in security and factory automation. With that, I hand it over to you, Hiroshi. The floor is yours. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for a kind introduction. Let's start my presentation. So nice to see everyone, and good morning and good afternoon and good evening. So actually it's in Tokyo City, it's in the evening time. I'm Hiroshi Sasaki from Industrial Cybersecurity Center of Excellence, ICSCoE. My session title is DX Security of Factory Automation. DX stands for the digital transformation, which is a big marketing word now in Japan. And it's a similar concept of the digitalization. I'd like to focus on the factory automation today, but I believe the concept is applicable to the other ICS sector. Okay. Before jumping into the main topic, as an icebreaking, I'd like to start to talk about the recent economical circumstances in Japan. The financial research in Japan reported the average profit is around 30% decline in comparison of the last year in Japanese 636 enterprises on the first section of the Tokyo Stock Exchange. Manufacturing company is around 10% decline, and the non-manufacturing company is around 50% decline. However, some manufacturing companies utilizing the following wind of the COVID-19 situation are growing fast, such as Sony, whose profit is a 90% increase. Apparently, bipolarization goes on among enterprises in Japan. So digital transformation is a big agenda for them to survive in the uncertain era. This is the executive summary of my presentation at first. DX is the strong driver for the IT and OT convergence, and the evolving ICS threat is also a good driver for promoting factory automation security. However, current factory automation systems are too messy and not ready for digital transformation. Moreover, there is a big gap of understanding among executives, IT, and OT people. It also prevents from promoting digital transformation and factory automation. As one of the solutions for these challenges, I'd like to introduce OT security workshop as a good practice today. It is a useful workshop for building the common understanding among them, executives, IT, and OT people, to obtain common goal and enough resources for middle and long-term roadmap. This is my short self-introduction. I'm a senior expert and a lecturer of ICSCoE, Industrial Cybersecurity Center of Excellence, which is an educational institute mainly providing the one-year full-time program of industrial cybersecurity for people from critical infrastructure and manufacturing sectors. Actually, so we have already the 4 students right now, and they comes from the original companies and studying very hard right now. And we really appreciate SANS people to help us anytime. Really appreciate it. And I'm also supporting the Japanese government METI, Ministry of Economy and Trade and Industry. And I work at McAfee Japan, which is my main business. My mission is to cultivate the culture of industrial cybersecurity. And basically, I work as an evangelist and a consultant of industrial cybersecurity because I was a developer of the industrial control system, such as PLC and HMI, before joining McAfee 8 years ago. Let's jump into the agenda today. I'd like to introduce about business environment, challenges, and good practices related to the digital transformation security of factory automation in Japan. Let's start business environment at first. I'm very sorry for its eye testing picture. It is picked up from the Japanese government resources, which shows the ideal use case of the realization of the Society 5.0 in manufacturing sector. The Society 5.0 is a similar concept with the Industry 4.0. Government slides always looks like this anyway. In the figure, the factory is connected to the AI on the cloud and realize more effective production. Plus, it is also beneficial for the clients. Usually, new values are produced by IT and OT convergence, which has the latest IT technology in a factory and internet connection to the cloud. I'd like to touch a little about the effect of the COVID-19 to the operation in the factory automation. COVID-19 requests us stay home, social distance, and reduce transportation. It will force them to accelerate, connect to the cloud, remote product management, and remote maintenance. Apparently, that trend will increase the cybersecurity risk. On the other hand, we need to take care of the evolving ICS threats for protecting the business of the factory automation. In recent years, ransomware campaign to manufacturing sector is very active. You might know very well about ransomware. The name is Snake or ECANS, which has the capability to terminate ICS-related process, such as Historian in the Windows OS terminal. Some media reported Honda, which is a very famous Japanese automotive manufacturer, might be hit by the ransomware Snake and stopped the production of the several factories globally. They almost recovered by June 11th, but a total 11 global sites were affected at that time. And the good news is Japanese executives who heard the news on the media have become very keen to the factory automation security. Next challenge part. Manufacturers have business goals such as high yield rate, manage factory automation system remotely, quick response of market demand, and so on. So a lot of DX projects are going on such as AI on cloud, install remote access tool, connection between the factory automation system to the order management system. However, current FA systems are usually not ready for DX because a lot of challenges of cybersecurity. You can categorize the challenges into 3 basic elements, which are people, process, and technology. This is a popular concept in the IC 62443 standard. I'd like to introduce 5 factory automation systems are not ready for digital transformation along 3 elements from now on. Firstly, I show you challenge of people, which is an organizational problem. The diagram shows the typical organization chart of the manufacturer in Japan. You can see several challenges in the chart. One big problem is CISO is the same person with CIO. That seems like one person controls both accelerator and braking pedals of a car. In the project, the CIO is more interested than the CISO. So cybersecurity project will give a low prioritization. Another problem is no one holds the ball for factory automation security. OT division usually has no dedicated team for factory automation security, and CSAT in the IT department is not involved enough to control it. So nobody in the manufacturer promotes factory automation security because it is not their work. Secondly, the challenge of the process related to the policy and procedure making. CSAT is usually ordered by executives to formulate the cybersecurity policy and procedures for incident response and factory automation. However, it doesn't work enough because it has little consideration for the operational process and assets in the factory automation system, which are managed by OT people. The gap tends to ruin the policy and procedure easily. Here are two real horror stories I have heard from some manufacturers in Japan. The first one is the left-hand side. In a manufacturer, CSAT had made a new policy that USB ports of PC in a factory automation system should be locked down physically by the lead. 6 months later, CSAT went to factory automation system to audit the compliance and found it out. The keys for the lead were placed by side of all locked ports. Actually, it is pointless, and not only pointless, but also reduced the operational effectiveness due to the key opening action. The second one is the right-hand side. In another manufacturer, CSAT had installed the new security switch in a factory automation system for strengthening the network security. A few months later, CSAT found it out. All Ethernet cables connected to the old switch. CSAT asked OT people, why do you stop using the new security switch? We believe our protection is working well. Sorry. Go back. The OT people said, oh, we just forgot to undo after the investigation in the short stop of the production. Maybe the new switch is not the root cause of the short stop, but OT people basically doubted it and changed it into the old switch, including the other attempts to trying to figure out the root causes. These stories tells us only installing technology into OT system doesn't work enough without people and process efforts. Finally, the challenge of technology part, which is related to the factory automation network. I have observed a lot of factory automation network of Japanese manufacturers. You might see the left side diagram as a general factory automation network. So I use a, I can do it. For example, here is the enterprise zone network, IT network, and then you can find the factory automation network here and here, and you can find the control network, a control information network, and control network, and the field network. So this is described in IC 62243 as five layers. However, The reality is not like that. You can see a lot of standalone PCs in the factory site and sometimes find unmanaged assets for remote maintenance. I was surprised to hear in some manufacturers, IT people believe factory automation system has no internet connection, but OT people install remote maintenance system recommended by OT system integrators and or vendors without consulting with IT people. Plus, the network is very flat, no layer structure in terms of segmentation. Sometimes IT and OT is connected via the server, which has two different network interfaces. So malware will be widely spread if the first infection is successful. Okay, next slide. So I introduced a lot of challenges so far. Let's go to the introduction of OT security workshop as a good practice to improve the situation. Sorry. What is the OT security workshop? It is for executives, IT, and OT people to get a common understanding of OT security and the rough roadmap of digital transformation security of factory automation. Sometimes there are a big gap of understanding among them. For example, executives think, hey, go DX. Why is our DX project for factory automation so slow? I know security is important, but it is too slow for me. On the other hand, IT people think, executives asked us, you should also cover factory automation security, but honestly to say, I'm not familiar with factory automation system. Plus, I cannot believe their culture of OT people who they use unpatched old PCs. And OT people think, please leave me alone. I don't like change anything. Security patch is awful for the availability of the factory automation system. So we need to fill the gap and set up the common language to achieve the enterprise goal. The workshop is planned for the purpose. I reset my cursor. And here is the sample agenda of the OT security workshop. Introduction of OT threats and the basic framework for understanding of factory automation security parts will build up the common basic knowledge for OT security among all stakeholders. This is the very first step for the mutual understanding. It also provides a 3-step security roadmap along the progress of the DX project. I show you the detail later. It will roughly takes 1 hour or 1 hour and a half. The workshop aims at building the common understanding among people who have different culture. This is an example for IT and OT people discussion. This diagram shows the relation between SQDC, which stands for the safety, quality, delivery, and cost. It is a very popular goal in Japanese manufacturers. And CIA, confidentiality, integrity, and availability, you might know very well. So SQDC is the factory automation goals of OT people are always conscious of. If you are IT people, you say, hey, OT guy, we need to keep CIA of information asset. Please follow the policy and procedure. But OT people don't take care of it because it seems not to be related to their goals. So we utilize this diagram to explain why CIA is important for realizing the SQDC goals. It will help IT and OT people understand each other. This matrix shows more detailed relationship between SQDC and CIA. you can see how the loss of CIA will harm on SQDC, safety, quality, delivery, cost. For example, you see the quality column in the matrix. Poor quality of product, including the recall situation, might happen due to the integrity issue by malware infection to the control terminal PC. The discussion would help IT and OT people convergence. Here is a short review of the NIST cybersecurity framework core function. Some people say it is too heavy for manufacturers to handle the NIST cybersecurity framework because there are a lot of control requirements. But I use the framework core for the rough discussion because the 5-function core concept is easily understood by all stakeholders, even the executives. The simple explanation of CSSF I always use is, if you want to mitigate the cybersecurity risk of your business, you need to identify what should be protected and protect them properly. However, you know, factory automation system includes a lot of outdated assets, such as the old Windows PC and unencrypted communication. So you cannot protect system against the cyber attack completely. Then you need to detect anomaly of the system as fast as possible and respond what happens and recover the production along the predetermined procedures if the incident happens. The important thing is the explanation does not include the technical words. So all stakeholders can get the easy language describing the cybersecurity risk in the factory automation system. To utilize the matrix of CSSF cybersecurity framework cores and people and process technology concept, you can organize the challenges based on the matrix, like that. It seems a very holistic approach, and it is important for executive people. After getting the common understanding of factory automation security, we help them to consider how to realize DX project with cybersecurity step by step. I recommend them to do 3-step approach of DX security. This is a step 1 of the roadmap. It is very difficult to change the factory automation system dramatically at the very first step. So we focus on the improvement of the people and process part at the stage, such as define the reliable organization for factory automation security, educational for team, operators, and executives. This is for the people effort. And update the asset management, formulate OT security policies, and these are the process part. In technology part, you can see the application whitelisting in the matrix, but it is a good countermeasure in the OT circumstances, but usually it is difficult to change the OT system due to the availability matter. So it is an optional measure. This is the second stage of the DX security of the factory automation system. So in this step, so we recommend the customers to install some visibility tools such as OTIDS, so which can do the asset management. And plus, we also recommend the perimeter protection, such as the firewall, IPS, between the IT and OT network. Of course, the DMZ is better, but almost all manufacturers are not so enough resources for doing that. And not only installing the visualization tool, we also do the people and process efforts. So such as strengthen the factory SAT capability and build factory SOC organization and promote executive awareness. And the process part is update the factory automation security policies, formulate the procedure for the factory security incident response, and annual penetration testing. These efforts are for process. And the final stage realize the IT and FA factory automation integrated monitoring and outsourcing. At the stage, we can evaluate the company-wide cybersecurity risk, including IT and factory automation. The roadmap depends on the situation of each company, but I observed it is very similar among Japanese manufacturers. Anyway, the one important thing of ThreeStep approach is to make all stakeholders, including executives, understand it is a long journey and they need to keep the budget and human resources for several years. This is a summary slide again. I'd like to say the first sentence. Let's start the conversation beyond the gap among the executives and IT and OT people to promote the digital transformation project securely. I'm not sure whether OT security workshop is applicable or not to the factory automation in the other countries, but I believe the gap among people like this happens everywhere all over the world. So please refer to the concept of the OT security workshop and utilize it in your business. Anyway, bipolarization will be promoted more in business circumstances in Japan. Without doing the conversation, it is difficult to survive in the uncertain era. Thank you so much for your kind attention. So this is the end of my slide. So any questions and comments are more than welcome. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Hiroshi, for that great presentation. I was actually glad I had turned my camera off because I was nodding my head so violently sometimes that I looked like with my crazy pandemic haircut, I looked like a headbanger when I was nodding to what you said. I mean, I couldn't agree more with some of the things you mentioned. So, and there are a few questions. So I'll take the liberty though of the moderator to ask you the first one. So imagine you had to pitch this to me in the famous elevator pitch. So we have that elevator right. And I know in Japan, they're much faster than here in Germany. So you have 30 seconds to convince me why it is important to conduct a workshop like this in my enterprise. So what is your number one argument for starting this like tomorrow?
Actually, it is difficult problem, but I think the one important sentence is executives need to take care of the business. So that if something happens in the factory automation, so you need to apologize in front of the media. So this is a very good key sentence for affecting the executive people in Japan. But actually, it depends on the country's culture. But this is one strategy for me if I have 30 seconds in the elevator pitch.
Thank you very much for that. And I can certainly alleviate to the fact that, yeah, I mean, maybe the apology itself has some cultural differences, but taking the blame in front of the public is probably one of the worst things a CEO has to do anywhere in the world. So I could not agree more with you. So going over to some questions that were asked in the channel. First one is the workshop mentioned one offered by you, Hiroshi, or by SANS? I mean, I can answer it's not a SANS workshop, but so to elaborate a little more on the question, where can people learn more about this workshop and how is this actually offered?
Actually, some Japanese manufacturers, more than 5 or 6. I have already done 5 or 6 manufacturers, including the executive people and IT people and OT people. Is this a correct answer for your question?
I think it's a good start. Thank you for that. So what I would recommend is, those of you asking that question, number one, download Hiroshi's presentation, go through it, and then contact him to how you could conduct such a workshop on your own or with his support. And I actually highly recommend to everyone get that presentation, walk through it, and talk about it with your team, because there's so many important points, especially when it comes to the different points of view from IT versus OT. I mean, as you said, Hiroshi, during the conversation, during your presentation, especially CIA versus SQDC. And yes, guys, if you Google SQDC, it is not about the Société Québécoise du Cannabis, although quality of product is important there as well, pardon the pun. But the point is that just requirements and objectives are very different between IT and OT. And Hiroshi had just a very more elaborate and diplomatic way of placing that than usually Rob Lee and myself have it. Like Rob was usually telling the business is not in the business of sending emails, or me yelling at people in a very German manner, leave OT alone, IT, you have no clue about what this is. But the point is understanding the different requirements. So yes. So another question that came up in the channel is, can you elaborate on why you would choose the NIST framework compared to other frameworks, for example, COVID or SGP?
Actually, the COVID is, I like it because it shows the separation of the governance and management. Actually, I usually use it, but I always use a NIST cybersecurity framework, but because this five-function core concept is easily understood by the executive people, because they don't understand the cybersecurity technical words. So if you use some, for example, the IPS and so antivirus and so EDR, so they don't care about it, but they can understand identify, protect, and detect and respond and recover. These words are not so technical. So I use this NIST framework for explaining these people to have the common understanding of all stakeholders.
Thank you for that. So to paraphrase, start simple, follow the KISS principle, keep it simple first. I think makes a lot of sense. So to put in a follow-up question that just came in. So do you see, where do you see then more complex and or more overarching frameworks like IEC 62443 towards this? So would you follow up with a framework like this after there's a certain maturity, or what is your take on your approach versus using NIST versus then applying more complicated frameworks?
Actually, the final countermeasure would be the same. Just for the, like a framework is better, simple is better, you know. So the final conclusion would be the same if you use a NIST cybersecurity framework or IC 62443. But always we always assess the risk of the OT system. Then we choose some countermeasures in the system. So the way for the explaining to the executives, the NIST cybersecurity framework and is very useful for understanding the situation of the risk capability of the factory automation system. So I utilize this framework. So actually, so I also refer to the IC 62443 to install some countermeasures. So this is it is the answer for them, I'm sure. But
that is, thank you. Final question. Which role do you think is the best approach to manage the IT-OT convergence? So where do you see IT-OT convergence best managed? Is it in the industrial maintenance, IT department, or is it a mixed role? So if you had your say, where would you place this in the organization?
Yes, it is a very difficult question. It depends on the culture of the company. But I recommend that IT people should take the initiative of this for building some factory automation SAT or something like that. So because OT people don't have enough knowledge about that, the IT people have the security knowledge, so they help them to build up the factory automation stack. But the place, it doesn't matter. I think that this communication is important for the building the team, for the managing the third function.
Thank you for that. I could not agree more. So the solution we came up with in my previous job in the automotive industry was actually a very Bavarian approach to this, because you just mentioned communication. So just get people from the different departments to meet over beers and Bavarian food at a beer garden. And then once people start trusting one another and start communicating, they also start talking about work. So I can imagine, following the full cliche, that maybe inviting everybody over sake and karaoke would help a lot. But yeah, certainly, I couldn't agree more. Communications, and then figuring out, again, to paraphrase your answer, wherever the problem solvers are in your organization is probably the best way to get started, but it totally depends on your organization's culture. So there's no easy cut answer to that. Yeah. Thank you so much, Hiroshi.
Thank you.
Follow-up questions might be posted to your hallway channel. So
I'll check it.
Invite everyone over to the hallway channel. Thanks again. And again, I couldn't recommend this more highly, especially to you IT people out there, to go through this presentation once after the summit, watch the recording and discuss this amongst IT folks with the OT people, because this is exactly what needs fixing in the IT-OT divide, understanding the different requirements, regulations, and differences in that.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Hiroshi.